Yeah, I mean, how would you compare the heat in Tokyo? Like, is it like I would always spend summers in Nebraska sometimes with my
Oh, this is
grandparents. Is it
easy
that?
actually.
Oh,
It's
okay.
Atlanta. It's
Oh, it's
Atlanta.
Atlanta. Oh, it's Atlanta. Okay,
So
great.
if you like, I've seen the graphs. Like if you line up temperature and humidity by day of the year,
Yeah,
average temperature and humidity day of the year on Tokyo versus Atlanta, it's like the same line.
perfect.
It's Atlanta.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going. Let's do the intro now. Welcome everybody. An intro music as well as a new background. We hope you all enjoy. Okay, that's enough. All right, that was too cheesy, but we're leaving it in. I'm joined here today with Nate Berkopik. Nate, do you want to say a little bit about yourself? Like, why do people know you other than great hats?
I'm the Rails performance guy.
Okay,
I have been optimizing Ruby on Rails applications for performance and scaling since 2016. And thanks to you, you also handed your old detritus off to me and told me to maintain Puma around about the same time.
it's
So I've
true.
also been doing that for about 10 years.
Nice. And you have the business. That's your business is doing that as well.
Yep. Yep. I've been
Nice.
a full time consultant for that whole period of time.
Nice, nice. Well, I thought today what we would do is we would tap your expertise and go through some Rails performance tuning. And so we talked a little bit before this. I think what we're going to do is we're going to use the rubygems.org Rails app because it's got great setup docs. And we're going to deploy it to Miren, and then we're going to kind of just do some tuning and see what happens. It might go terribly. We might never be able to tune it, but it'll be interesting to see us getting it booted, and we'll go from there. So I have a Miren cluster set up. Let me go ahead and show that. So I have a cluster all set up, all ready to go. This is running over on DigitalOcean. It's called Ruby Speed. It's all set up and ready for us to go to deploy to. So let's go and let's just go right. Ooh, no, that's not what I want. I want. I want this window. So what we're gonna do is we're kind of just gonna do this. Nope, don't have this. Don't have that stuff. There we go. We're gonna kind of do this a little bit blind, like not completely blind, but mostly we're gonna let Claude kind of drive the experience here, and then we can talk about it as it goes along rather than watching me type. So let's go ahead and let's go. Actually, just do it like this.
Got any more pixels? I feel like this terminal is like I've got like a 140p terminal I'm looking
Is
at
it too
here.
small for you? Too
No, it's
big?
like it's just that no, the size is great. It's just the maybe like it's because your screen is like blowing it up too much into
Oh,
like
is it?
this.
Oh, it's just too big. All right, let's try that. Is that better?
That's fine.
Layout wise? Yeah. All right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah. So all right, we'll do this. We'll do the circles. All right, great. So we're over here, and we can see that like there's a bunch of README documentation about how to run it in general, and it's been through a lot. It battled hardened. It does all the things. So it has a compose file, which let's see what generally the compose file recommends, right? So it recommends not a lot, a search
Well,
proxy,
they got rid of Redis a long time ago, so I think all you really need is the database. Oh, it looks like these
database.
Elasticsearch,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's
It
it.
looks like memcache there. So
Oh,
we'll see how it fares along. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go add this cluster.
you called it Rails speed or something?
Yeah, I did actually. You know what? We're doing it. I'm doing it not in the environment that I thought I was going to do it in. So let me actually let's actually do this slightly different because I don't really want to set all of that up again. All right, See, this is, you know, it would, you got to just do stuff live here. All right, let's go over here, change.org. Okay, all right, that's what I'm going to do. Let's go. I want to stop the screen, and then I want to go to that, and then I want to go there, and I want to go to that one. Okay, this is one that has all my right environment stuff set up. So let's go cluster add. And what this is doing is it's reaching out to Miren Cloud, the thing we just saw, and it's listing all the clusters that I have available to me. And we can see inside here, we can see Ruby's feed right here that we want to add. And so what this is going to do is it's going to pull down the configuration. It's going to save it locally. So that way, when I go to talk to it, my local client is talking directly to the server. It's not going through Miren Cloud. So there we go. So we're all added. So now what we can do is we can just bounce into here. We can say, you to deploy this Rails app to the Miren cluster named Ruby Speed. And we'll see how it goes. So it automatically
use Miren skill,
which is going to tell it a little bit. One of the things I really like about our skill is that it doesn't have a lot of the it doesn't have the form of all the commands baked into it. It basically tells it how to find out about the commands. So it can
yeah, I've found the same pattern in my own skill writing. Is like you basically don't want to actually list out what the thing does because you're going to change that over time. But instead,
exactly right.
Teach it how to call, you know, the usage, right. How to figure out how to use the thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you can see here it's thrashing a little bit, which is fine. Trying to figure
that's
out.
That's also like for me, mostly what I use skills for is not actually to successfully complete tasks, but rather to improve token efficiency. And so like I just see thrash as like, well, there's a little bit of room for improvement on this skill, but like that's actually for me the main purpose of skills is like reducing thrash and therefore improving token efficiency, not actually getting the thing done.
Absolutely, exactly right. Okay, so let's I think we can go ahead and skip search for now. I don't think we want to try to do that.
I do know for a fact it works without it. So.
Okay, so let's just go ahead and skip search for now. And I do, I said this in a previous video, I do love this, that like when you explain it, when you give it all these things now, most of the agents will basically be like, okay, great. Like, let me before I go and just basically like smash my head against the wall, did you also need this extra bit or could we skip it? I'm a big fan of that.
Can you explain to me like why the choice is, what's a Miren add-on? And like, so just like do the translation for me of a Docker Compose file into why does that have to become a Miren add-on?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a set of add-ons that are really just we're adding to them. So we have a registry and we had to just sort of pick some places to start. So it's got like registry and Valkey, Redis compatible server, a couple of other things I'm remembering off the top of my head. But basically, before add-ons, what you would do is you can still run services. In fact, I think it will probably go and try that out right now. You could run auxiliary services next to your main app just fine. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to give a more workflow-oriented way for you to interact with those services. So for instance, in the case of like Postgres, it's a little bit more than like spinning up the server. You also need to figure out the credentials at the very minimum, right? So you have to figure out the credentials and inject those credentials into it. So when we decided to build add-ons, they were just sort of like the ones that we know that people want the most, and we just continue to add to them as people request them or we get around to them over time. But effectively, it lets us do a little bit more than you would do if you have, say, just a straight auxiliary service. And the classic example here is that our Postgres add-on has really two separate modes. It's got sized modes, so I can say Postgres small, like medium, large, but then you can also do a Postgres shared. And what that is that's actually a Postgres server that runs inside your cluster. But when you use Postgres shared with your apps, instead of spawning a new Postgres server, a whole new Postgres cluster, it actually just creates new Postgres databases inside the existing cluster and hands out credentials and users to them. And so if you've got small apps, you don't really need to run like 10 versions of Postgres. You just need one with maybe 10 different Postgres databases inside of it. And so the add-on gives us the surface area to sort of give people all those different experiences. And it also just makes it easier to add. You know that, for instance, it's going to set up correctly and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so here's a good example. So it's like, hey, I need S3. Do you just want me to run Minio? And be like, yeah, go ahead. Like, it'll just set it up as a side service, right? And do we want to run let's just run web only just for this demo. Running the background jobs is just as easy. It's a separate service that would be in that file. So we'll run web only for the start here. And so when you're working with companies, is it the kind of thing where you kind of dive in and you help them like, oh my God, my Rails app is so slow. Can you help me fix it now? And then you disappear? Or is it like a continual basis where you try to help them along?
Used to be more of the former. Now it's kind of more of the latter. I think I learned that people's ambitions exceed their attention spans, and normally,
if like that isn't the motto for this modern era, I'm not sure what is.
Yeah. Like what was happening was like I would kind of come in and do like more intensive 2 to 4 week projects, and then they would kind of like never do anything beyond that. Like they would just like they first of all we didn't implement that much during that window, and then they would never implement anything else. And then also like things that I noticed was like people's priorities shift a lot over time, and performance is never it's not like actually what you charge for. Like it's a necessary step to delivering value to customers, but it's not the value you actually deliver. So a lot of times it will get moved down the priority list to deal with other things. So I started moving to longer and longer engagements because like I realized I needed to work with people on longer timelines because like, oh, something came up this month and like we're really busy. It's like, okay, cool. Like we'll just do more next month. Yeah, I part of what I've changed on is like I think performance is an ongoing process rather than a one-time intervention. I think it's like it needs to become an ongoing loop that is kind of always running rather than a crash intervention.
Yeah, a little bit, you can have the deep cleaner come once a year, but it's probably more fruitful for them to come every 2 weeks or every month instead, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so it kind of went through and figured out like, okay, what environment variables am I going to need to set up? How do I want to do this? It's opted to go ahead and use a Docker file because this app already has one. So it's like, I don't need to reinvent the wheel here. Rails and Ruby are fully supported by Miren without a Docker file. If you want to just, hey, just go do the thing. And what we do is we just sort of encode the common Ruby Rails patterns for how to do stuff. If you've got like I said, if you've got a Docker file, it's happy to just use it. And then sometimes if you've already got all the random things, that can make it even easier. So
without a Docker file, do you use a build pack or something else?
We have our own little system. I think we started off considering using build packs. One of the things that kind of drove us to, we have a thing called Stack Build. It's just inside the product. It doesn't have it's not its own project or anything unto itself. But one of the reasons that we sort of cleaved away from build packs or Nix packs or all those other ones is that what we really want is people to have we want to be generating, say, Docker files internally that someone else could build. We don't have this feature right now. We've talked about building it, the ability to just say, hey, can you just, whatever steps you took, can you just export them to me as a Docker file? We want to always be able to do that. We don't want people to have to go into the image, be struggling to figure out why is this here? What's going on over here? And that is one of the things that we found happens with those sort of higher level frameworks is that they become a little bit irreproducible in when you kind of take it out of one of these systems. And we didn't want people to feel like they were locked in, like, oh my gosh, the only way my app builds is if I build it through Miren. Like That's kind of a worst case scenario. We want it to always work, pretty much the same or understandably the same. So yeah, so we're mid deploy now, and for the Rails app, I actually need to tell the skill. This is one thing I hate about the skill right now, is that it always is doing tail on deploy, which means that I can't see where it is until the very end. And so I actually need to go in, and I think we have a version of deploy, or we've been talking about adding a version of deploy that just prints out the steps simply one at a time for when an agent's running them, and tells it, don't tail this, just let it print out one at a time so that the user gets some insight. So, because right now we're sort of just left like, you're tailing a thing, I would love to know where you are. It's building the image. So one of the things about Miren is that it doesn't use the local Docker or anything like that. So what this process did was it actually pushed all of the code for this app up to the server, and it's building the image and everything on the server. We really like that model because it just means there's just far less if you have a team of 10, they don't all have to figure out, like, is your Docker set up? What version of Docker are you on in order to get the build to work right? So do you end up doing that too as you're engaged with people about performance stuff, or you're like, yeah, your setup's your setup? Like, I always wonder, like, because sometimes the performance of it is a little bit like, okay, what are your dependencies and what is going on here? So
yeah, I try not to take people too off topic, because I don't want to, especially in this day and age, I don't have anybody who is thinking like, wow, I really wish I had more pull requests to review. So
yeah.
I'm very aware that like every pull request I throw on the stack needs to kind of deliver on the reason I was brought in. So even if I have lots of opinions about things, about deployment or whatever, like, if that's not part of the reason I was brought in, I think I need to be careful about opening those kinds of like cleanups, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, this is an interesting one that I'll have to document. That so we honor gitignore when we push it up, but the config file that it needs is actually inside that gitignore, so that it doesn't get pushed up. So there's a little chicken and egg there that I'll have to. I think we've talked about honoring Docker ignore instead, if it exists. That's a good feature. I'll put on the pile. So. As we're waiting for this to build, the other thing I thought I would just talk with you and get your feelings about as we kind of get into it. Let me open up this other window over here. Let's see here. Yeah. So, oh no, that's the wrong one. That's all right, but we can get there from here. Let's see, where am I? Over here. So one of the things that we do and we really like is, oh my gosh, where did it go? I have. Okay. One of the things that we really like is we don't do. We try not to force people into doing instance-based scaling, right? Because I think that what I've seen in the past is that people, it's just like holding your finger up, like, oh, is this, I don't know, like 10 or 11, 16, 4, like the people, it's just the guesses are all over. And what you find is that people made a guess at some point in time, and the guess doesn't make any sense at all. And so what we like to do is we take the model from Cloud Run, Google Cloud Run, and what we do is we scale the web container, just like Heroku. We call it the web containers, the main one. We scale it to 0 automatically. But then on Auto, what we also do is we automatically scale it up based off of concurrent requests. So if you're like, okay, great, like this app can handle 50 concurrent requests, then as soon as you start to get to 51, 52, it'll be like, okay, great, I need to boot another instance of this so that I can basically fan out the things to it. And we feel like that's a much better place for people to start, You can always just go back to individual numbers, but we always feel that's a better place for people to start than trying to just figure out, like, I don't know, is this a 6 instance app or a 1 instance app sort of thing?
How do you know how many concurrent requests this app is?
We have a HTTP ingress. So when we actually
No, I don't mean how do you figure it out? Like you've changed the
oh
question. How do I know how
yes.
many what requests per instance?
Well, that's why you're here. I think that's the question. Like, I think that becomes the question, right? Again, but I think that that's an easier answer to cleave to than how many instances should I have, right? So, if I when we were doing Puma tuning, it's a little bit like, oh well, like you kind of tweak the numbers a little bit until you find a happy place. I think that this is another place where you can kind of do that. You're like, oh well, put it at 15. Like, how many users do I have? I've only got 100 users. Well, you could probably set this at 10 and no one will ever notice, that kind of thing, right? So I think you have to tune it a bit.
I mean, for our Rails application, this is going to depend on how many processes you run per instance. Like that's going to be the most sensitive variable here. So that also then is going to correspond to how many CPU you have per instance. So I think probably the simplest answer is that all three of those numbers should be the same. Is that you should request per instance, the CPU of the instance, and the number of processes on the instance should just all be the same number. And ideally, I think that number would be 4 or up. So if that number is 1, the problem then is that if you have only 1 process per box, then that box effectively is unavailable while it's processing that request, and it will not process any other requests, at least reliably. So like any request that goes into that box may queue. So we don't like that. And if you have 4 per box, then all 4 of them have to be busy for there to be queuing. If even one of them is available, then it will pick that request up off the socket and process it. So that's even with the same number of processes in total. So let's say you have a Miren config here with request per instance of 4 and 4 CPU on the box and 1 instance. That will perform better than 4 instances with 1 request per instance and 1 process on each box. Despite the fact that I've deployed the same amount of vCPU or whatever and the same amount of processes in total, purely because it's less likely that all 4 processes on the same box will need to queue. So I think the simplest answer is that all 3 numbers should be the same.
Okay. So I think one of the things that it's surprising sometimes when people go to places to Miren is we don't ask you about your resources. We don't ask you, like, how much CPU do you want to assign this thing? How much memory do you want to assign this thing? And the reason is that it's your machine. You deployed these apps to a machine that you chose, right, ahead of time. And so because of that, we kind of are like, we don't want to restrain you. You're making that decision based off of like what the machine size. And I think over time we will have to grow some. We're actually in the process of finishing up distributed runners, which basically will let a cluster be multiple machines. And so we'll have to do a little bit more in terms of helping people along. Like, how much memory does this thing need? Okay, great. How should I pack this amongst which one?
Okay. But so right now, currently there's no like effective difference between a node and a pod, for example.
Correct. Right now, I mean, you can have many of them. Like, you can deploy tons of apps to a single machine, but you're basically everybody has access to the same CPU pool to sort of soak it up.
Okay.
Yeah, which as time goes on, we'll have to grow more controls. But right now, we find that like that's kind of okay. Like, again, because it's your machine. Yeah.
God bless the global VM lock. You actually don't need those restrictions. Like, we're not like we don't actually need in the Ruby community like the actual like restriction feature of like CPU time sharing. Like,
correct.
So like it perfectly would work fine with this current model of like, well, I know I have 8 CPU on the box, and let's say I have 2 apps deployed to it with 2 different instances. I'm just going to be careful to make sure the number of processes doesn't add up to more than 8 on that box. And the GVL will take care of the restriction for me because each of those processes is not going to use more than about 1 CPU.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, let's jump back over here. I think it's actually making pretty good progress. So it was working through. It found some SSL assumptions it had to go through, and I think it's finishing up trying to make sure that like the actual web portion of this, the ingress works. So one of the things that we love about Miren is that it automatically, when you have a cluster that's connected to Miren Cloud, we automatically assign you DNS. So you can see here that's using this cluster gobbledygook Miren.systems. That's DNS that we automatically assign to your cluster. Your cluster is signed in, and so you could just use that. And so that's actually what it's using. If you don't set any routes and there's only one app, that one app gets all of the traffic. And so that's the case for this particular setup. And so that's why Claude is like, okay, great. I can just use the regular host and just basically direct everything at it. We didn't even have to set up a route. A route would just be host name based, like, hey, which host name goes to which app? In this case, there's just the one app. So it sorts itself out. So. Yeah, so now it's debugging. So let's actually see let me go to this. Yeah, it's in a redirect loop. So that's what it's debugging right now is why it's getting stuck in a redirect loop. How many clients do you end up taking on at a time? I can imagine that it depends. So,
I do quite a few. I mean, now in the age of agents, it's definitely a lot easier. It's for me to multitask.
Yeah.
Things like setting up a new Rails environment on my machine. So, like, given random Rails app, can I get the tests running and passing correctly locally? Like that used to take days, and now I literally just fire off a prompt at an agent, and it figures it out in 20 minutes. So that's been a huge change. Like other things like repeated work, like I have dozens of pull requests open in flight at the same time, and I'm at the mercy of how quickly people merge those. And so eventually they will have merge conflicts. And now I have agents write a software that checks, all my open pull requests to see if they have merge requests or merge conflicts. And then I can fire off an agent prompt to fix all the merge conflicts. Like that's crazy. Like that would have been, this is all so much manual drudgery that I would have had to do before. And now it's just $1 tokens away.
Yeah. Yeah, this is looks like the app is up and running, and so now it's really just trying to debug how to make sure that it's accessible. I think this is one of those cases where I'm guessing that Rails and therefore RubyGems.org app in general is like, okay, hey, if you're coming from localhost or this IP address range, hey, it's all good. You get access to all the things, and you sort of don't hit these roadblocks. In this case, we're actually trying to like have a real deployment of it, and so it's kind of like, who are you? Where are you coming from? And so it's having to sort of sort through those. I don't think that's the case. I'm gonna let it figure that out, even though Postgres add-ons defines it.
So one thing that I find myself doing a lot with clients, particularly with Postgres, is usually installing various kinds of like database monitoring add-ons. Like Datadog has one, and there's also stuff like PG Analyze and PG Hero. Like a lot of these things require stuff.
Sure.
Like Datadog, I think requires something running on the host. Some of them it's really simple and just require like an extension. Like if for an add-on, like what is my level of control over what is running on that add-on?
Yeah, I mean, I think that right now, so you can specify your own. These come from Docker slash OCI images, Postgres, all that kind of stuff. So if you wanted to like, oh, I actually want this thing that runs alongside Postgres and I want it to come with the Postgres add-on, you could just basically tell it, hey, when you install the add-on, you basically give a version. It's also documented that the version has the ability to just specify a full, like a name of an image that you want to go do, right? Like you want docker dot io slash blah blah blah, whatever the image is. So, and it will happily just use that. So in that way, if you're like, okay, I actually want to use maybe it's a different version of Postgres, maybe it's your own esoteric build, maybe it's just Postgres that has a bunch of add-ons that sort of run alongside it. Yeah, it's totally open to you, because again, that just runs on your host, right? That all the stuff is running on your own machine. So we don't really restrict any of that, because that's totally up to you. And I think that if you were getting into that, that would be an easy way for you to make sure that all of those bits and bobs were always there and always available to you, and not sort of stuck having to run another app that just runs the monitoring that does this other thing. Yeah, I think that we're really open to feedback about how the add-ons work, though. So for instance, I've got all kinds of weird, crazy ideas about how to define apps, more interesting ways to build up new add-ons rather than having to add all the code into the actual repo. So for the people watching, feel free to drop us a line and let us know what kind of add-ons you want, A, and B, like any ideas for how you would want those add-ons to be defined. Obviously, if you have any ideas here as well. So.
Yeah, it's something I thought about a lot with these platforms. I mean, Heroku had app.json. I think Render has something kind of similar.
Yeah,
Northflank has these like workflow things, I think they call it. And so everybody tends to have their own version of this. Man, I don't know. I wish Docker Compose just worked everywhere.
Well, we've talked about that too. We've talked about just basically having Docker, ingesting Docker Compose and sort of doing the right thing for people. I don't think that's not off the table either. So I guess the question,
one of the most annoying things is, I think it's like they always end up being really complicated, I guess, is kind of my gripe. And like the really weird thing is like Northflank doesn't even let you, it's like a text file, but it like doesn't let you edit it like directly. Like you have to actually edit it through the web UI or something.
Weird.
And like also it can't be terraformed. Like you can't use Terraform with it, when it's like, to me, that's quite annoying. So yeah, like I need some kind of infrastructure as code interface, and I would kind of prefer it to be one that I already use, like Terraform or Docker Compose or something. So I guess I'm not against these formats, but it's just like they always end up just being very complicated platform specific JSON, and it's like, did this really save me a bunch of time over editing something in a web UI?
Yeah, I mean, I have definitely it's on our product list to support just app.json, just Heroku app.json. Like, don't reinvent the wheel. Like, there's already one here. Just basically do what's inside there. I think that's definitely on our something that we have on our potential roadmap. It looks like we may have hit a Miren bug here where the add-ons are not properly injecting the environment variables. I'm actually not sure. One thing I do know, though, is that it did solve its host problem, which I will show you here. This is now up and running. So we've solved that problem. We're getting a 500 now.
Nice.
Which is great. And if we reload that, we're getting 500s for days. So in some ways we could load test the 500 page.
500 is a service, yes.
Yeah. So I'm gonna let this run another minute and see if it can sort itself out. But I'm probably not going to. We're not gonna sit here and debug a Miren bugs either. So, but your take here is that what we should do is let's just assume for a second that this is running. Let me go ahead and SSH and back in here. Let me see here. Actually, I don't need to do that. Just go over here. So what we can do is we can just assume that that's up and running, and then we can go in and just configure this, right? So this is a fresh app, right? So do you feel like what you like to do in this case, we're just talking about the broad strokes here of like workers and thread tuning. Like, do you like to use the environment variables? Do you like to set it up in a config file? What's your sort of, what's your poison here?
Oh, there was a time when I thought everything should be set with Rails max threads. So as the environment variable, it kind of depends on how visible. This is a good demo opportunity for you. It kind of depends on how visible environment variables are. This like setting them. So like if your platform, your deployment platform, does not show the value of this environment variable that you're going to use in text in the repo, then I would not use environment variables, right? So like if this is old school Heroku, right? Like Heroku had config set in the CLI, and there was no way, there's no text value anywhere of that in the repo. So I would not use environment variables then, because then you can't look it up anywhere without a very privileged level of access, which is to read all the environment variables. So I don't like that.
That makes sense. Yeah.
If you can read it locally and it's very obvious what it would be set to in every environment, then I think an environment variable is pretty good. You would want Rails max threads to be set in all environments. And then if you do that, as long as you're not overriding it anywhere in any other way, you can use that to set the database pool size. It'll set Puma will read it, Sidekick will read it, and that's kind of my preferred way.
Yeah. Okay. So what we can do, we'll go ahead and show this here. Oh, I don't remember what app it. Okay. So what we do is we'll show these. It worked around the bug, which is great, by manually setting the database URL, which is totally fine. I'll figure out what's going on there. It'll be in the next release. But so this we have this list and where you can get all these, and these are sensitive values that we don't print out right now. That's probably still a privileged thing. For instance, I can ask for these unmasked, and that's just sort of a nice thing. So I think that that's a good note for people. Oh, wait, I am not even showing my screen, am I? There we go. Sorry. So this is the environment list. This is what I was saying. It worked around the problem by just setting the database URL manually. And now that's a Miren bug. I'll go figure out what's going on there. It's fine. These are sensitive, but these are sensitive in just I'm not just going to display them because you're maybe on. So I don't want someone to shoulder surf them. If I could ask them to be unmasked, and so and this is an instance where yes, they are privileged, and maybe you don't want to expose them to everybody. But I think for this particular demo, I think we can go ahead and this is sort of just an FYI. So. Okay.
Yeah, I think my point was more that so where RubyGem's host was set was in some file somewhere that I don't know how,
right.
With some Miren thing that I don't understand. Because you can do that and you can commit that to the repo, then I would do it that way. You can see here your source is for these secret values is manual, so that's not in these committed files, right? So
that's right. That's just set inside the Miren cluster. That's correct.
Yeah. So I would, if this is your setup, you're saying my secrets are coming in from some other way, so manual entry or whatever. And my non-secret environment variables are committed to code, then I would say yes, you should use
Oh,
Rails
okay.
underscore max underscore threads and set it to whatever value that should be.
Yeah. So what that would look like is that's like here. So if we go and look, we have this, we have our own
Yep.
sort of top level. And so it'd be here. So let's see, we're going to set Rails max threads, right?
Yep. Max underscore threads. Yep. And in this case, I mean, this app, because I don't know anything about it, I would not have done this because Puma's default's fine. But like, this is how, if I knew I wanted to set it to a different value, this is where I would do it.
Yeah. So we'll set this to 4, and then what's the other one that you said? Sorry.
No, that's it. That's why I use Rails Max
okay.
Threads, is because we have to check the database YAML file. I think the default reads Rails Max Threads, but this app was generated 20 years ago, and who knows what the hell's in database.yaml.
That's exactly right. Let's see.
Config database.yaml.sample. I don't know what you're doing to.
Oh yeah, I am actually not sure which one it picked up. It didn't seem to copy this over, so we'd have.
So in this case, the pool is hard coded to 5. So there's nothing to. Oh, actually, let's check prod. I'm saying that based on not seeing what prod says. 30. Okay. 30. So the pool is hard coded here, so we don't have anything to set.
Okay. So we'd set Rails max threads, and then I think what we would do here, like let's say we were doing this for Rails. Okay, I've come in here and I've done my thing. Now you can just go over here and you can say Miren deploy. And it's going to say, yeah, do I want to do that? Yep. And so now we haven't been able to see this up to now, but now it's actually going off and doing all the things. There's some other niceties here. I don't think that number is right. That's an estimation, but it only sends the difference, the files that actually are different from the last commit up, which is nice just to speed it up. So,
and how are we going to set the number of processes on this instance?
Well, yeah. So that was my next question. Is that I forget if that is a Puma config that we should set here?
Yeah, I mean, the way I'd probably do it based on the default. So again, I don't know if this is what this app actually looks like, but the default Puma behavior is to read the web concurrency environment variable. So that's probably the easiest way, again, would be like, I'm going to set web concurrency in this file to however many processes as I want. You'd have to check the puma.rb here to make sure that actually would work. But
yeah, so we got Rails max threads.
So that works.
Web concurrency is the work.
Yeah, so they're reading it. Okay, great. So like in this case, so this is kind of a good example of like where you would have to be careful with a Miren model today, because this is now saying I'm going to set the worker count to however many processes or CPUs are available on the machine, which if you are deploying multiple instances to this same machine, that's a little bit aggressive. You could end up in a situation where you're overcommitted in terms of CPU resources. So I think unless I knew I was never going to deploy anything else to this box, I would probably set web concurrency to however many processes I want.
Yeah, I guess, and it's default. I actually like the fact that it defaults here to the actual processor count, because I think that's a reasonable value here, right?
I think that's wrong, actually. I think we changed this. Yeah, so like you shouldn't set it to the physical processor count. You set it to the logical count. Otherwise you're going to have a bunch of hyperthreads sitting around that you paid for that you're not.
I was going to say, yes, exactly right. That there's a lot. Those numbers can skew a lot now more than they used to.
I mean, Amazon has been selling you vCPUs. They've been selling you hyperthreads for literally like 20 years now. So like this whole idea of like a hyperthread is not equal to a CPU core is kind of that ship sailed 20 years ago. So it's a different method.
So this is a good example of where we set max threads because that made sense in the database. But what we're going to do is we're going to say like, okay, you know what? Like this is for this particular box. I don't want this to live in the code because this is this particular, where this is deployed right now. And so this is a good example of where you go. Let's see if that finished deploying. It got a million weird errors. Oh yeah, this is. Yeah, so it was waiting. This is it's still coming up fine. This is just it's giving you an error because it's not coming up healthy, but it's giving errors around Datadog because it's not disabled. So for whatever reason, and we don't have to debug that right now. But this is what an example where we might do Miren M set C Ruby speed, and then we would do -e web concurrency. It's got 2 R's, right? Spelling was never my strong suit. Great. Yeah. So and then we could, we would set it to let's just say 2. Let's just say this is a low. We don't really care about much about this. It's a low traffic Rails app, right? And so what Miren does here is it sets the environment variables, and now it's going to go like, okay, great, I need to go relaunch this. So one of the things that it's automatically relaunching based off the new configuration. So and that actually is nice because you can roll back to old configuration. And when you roll back to old configuration, you roll back to old versions of those environment variables as well. So you can like, oh gosh, like, what did you set? I don't know. Well, I don't know. Can you just roll back to yesterday? And it'll happily roll back to yesterday. So, okay. Again, we're getting this weird error, and I'm just you can see in here that it actually was starting up, but we're still getting some errors around Datadog, which I'm not gonna sweat that. And so what we would do over here is the last thing I think we would do is we could go set the number of, and I think it's this thing that I showed earlier, which is this application scaling. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy that out, and we're going to bring that over here. So this is the place in here where what we would do is we've already got web service, and this is actually defining. You could do this. This is Claude decided to do it this way. You could do this with a proc file also instead, setting the command. But what we're going to do here is we're going to have another block in here that sets the concurrency. Auto is the default mode for web, but in this case, let's say, you know what, like this thing could only handle like 3 concurrent requests, and but we also want the scale down time to be short, just 3 minutes, right? So we set that, and then we can go ahead and do that deploy.
What other keys do I get there in auto scaling? Scale down delay is like a pretty advanced thing to get for a platform. That's nice.
Yeah. So if you go look over here, so we've got it's not a lot right now.
You're not sharing anything at the moment.
Those are the main keys, right? But you can kind of read a little bit about how they work.
Can you share?
Oh, I'm not sure. I'm sorry. No. Yeah. So those ones that we did are the only keys right now. But this
I want it all, man. I want scale up delay. I want a.
We can do it. I'm there. I'm happy to add them. Happy to add them. Yeah. And then obviously, if you were like, hey, look, don't do that. Like I want to know exactly how they go. You just set mode fixed, then you just set the number of instances. Makes sense, right? And then there's a few sort of examples here. What we do for background workers, auto doesn't make sense at all, period, because there's no traffic to generate for those kinds of services. So you always set those 2 fixed and some number of workers that you want. We had a really cool actually request to basically be like, hey, how could I make my workers be auto? And I was like, oh, how could we do that? So I got a lot of weird ideas about that. That could be cool to look at someday as well. So all right, so this app is up. It's deploying. It's gonna get, you're not seeing this. This version is gonna get weird here in a second. Let's see here. Yeah, we're deploying. Yeah, we're still up. It's waiting for it to become healthy, but we know that it's having a problem with Datadog, and we're not going to worry about that. Great, so it's up. So what we can do is I'm going to kind of just simulate a bunch of random traffic here by just hitting the reload button a whole bunch of times and seeing what happens. And then what we can do is we can go bounce over and see if that was enough to actually cause the scaling to kick in, because I think that is where I wanted us to get to. So we can go over here and go Miren sandbox list, Ruby speed. It's not okay. Let me I'm just gonna use curl to do this. All right, let's see what that did.
It's very quaint to see you even type things out and use an editor yourself. I find I don't even bother with that anymore.
Yeah, maybe this front page is actually just because this front page is doing almost nothing. We actually might be sticking underneath the.
I mean, it could be 20 milliseconds. You probably have to fire 50 requests per second off at it just to saturate one.
Let's give it a try. Remember this? Remember typing in Bash? Oh, wait, you can't even see me. What am I doing? Remember this? Type it in Bash. It's a good time. All right, here we go. We're gonna do.
Well, this is only gonna be concurrency of 1, right?
No, look at that. Move that guy right there, though. You ready
for
this?
All right. Here we go. Yeah.
We hold your breath here.
Yeah, I see. RIP Evans PC streams over.
Yeah, exactly. All right, there we go. So we got way over the number required here, which is great. And so what you can see here is it's booting them up, but the traffic came in so fast and heavy that it's actually like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So the traffic has gone away. It'll wind these down. You can see it's sort of stalling out, which is fine because it's booting these up as they come up, and yeah, it's booting them up. And you know what, this is one of those situations where it's like the Rails startup time kind of eats in a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Where what we probably need here is, because of the load that's generated by ingress and the load that's generated by the out, like more of a scaling factor. Be like, oh my gosh, we're rapidly approaching this. Maybe we need to take some preemptive action here to boot these up if the boot time of the app is long. But the idea is that and it scaled them down.
Maybe they're all dying.
I think it scaled them down because they didn't start up fast enough. Didn't need them anymore. But that's the idea. They would start up and then they would soak up traffic, and then automatically they would sort of spin down.
Didn't we have a scale down delay?
Yeah, but I set it really low. I set it to like. Yeah, maybe they crashed on boot.
That's what I think happened.
You think they crashed on boot? Well, let's check it out.
I'll bet they didn't boot.
That's all of the stuff, the Datadog errors. Oh, you know what?
Nothing in listening on.
We were hitting it so hard. So this is a great. There we. This is a good thing also for us to show. So we can try this again. So one of the things that we have found is that the startup value here is too short. So let me remember exactly what I should set this to. I want to say it's. Yeah, so it's only 15 seconds right now. Is that it basically waits 15 seconds for this to boot up, and given the time of Rails boot up time and the fact that it had a ton of load, that was just way too short, right? So what we need to do here is give that port. We'll sort of YOLO it here. Just say like, don't worry about it. Just let it boot up. Give it 5 minutes, and so we come back here. And we can go ahead and deploy that so that configuration goes in.
So Miren's model is that it has its own router which terminates
Yeah,
TLS.
that's
I
right.
assume that does HTTP2 too, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
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 And actually, we've been. I think we're probably going to add HTTP3 in here soon.
Hmm.
That obviously requires a little bit more work with the actual application in order to say, do you want the headers that say to redirect users to HTTP3 and stuff like that? But I think we use HTTP3 internally for our RPC layer. And so we've got experience with it. So that's why we've been thinking about adding it on the application side as well. So
Um, what, if anything? Well, okay, I'll give a feature request, which I'm something
please do.
I'm 100% sure you don't do already, but I
Okay.
would want if I deployed any app to Miren, is
Yeah.
the router needs to stamp incoming requests with a request X request start header, which is the number of milliseconds since the epoch.
I think it might. We do a
Okay,
lot of stuff in there.
does, then great. But the Heroku router would do this. I
Mhm.
have to tell everybody that does their own deploys to like set this up with like they have to like set up their own Nginx like sidecar, which will then do it for them because like uh,
Oh,
the AWS ALB will not do this for you, and you can't add headers in the ALB. If you just have Cloudflare in front of your thing, like Cloudflare won't do it for you. Like so, a lot of people are stuck in clouds where the router will not doesn't add this automatically, and they can't. There's no configurability to add it. So you got to do one of the other. Like you either got to just do it for me or let me configure it. And I feel like for Miren, it makes sense to just do it for me.
oh yeah.
So
I'm putting it in
um,
linear right now to check. So you X request.
I think it's X request start is the one that I mean. There's two headers that I've seen used. Um, I think X request start is kind of the one that everybody, yeah, seems to
And the
have.
idea here is that you have this
Yeah, that's the one.
value. Yeah, you have this value that you can use in order to know. You can just sort of measure. Oh, the request started here, and so I am running. I took 10 seconds to run this or whatever it is from the load balancer ingress to like my response, for instance.
God, I hope to God it's not 10 seconds, but yeah,
Or
yeah.
whatever.
The idea is I know when this entered my infrastructure, and so I can know how long it took me to start processing it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's look. So it booted up fine. We also have fixed that bug that we were hitting before, which is basically Ruby Rails was taking more than 15 seconds to boot up. That was actually what was going on. So now we're all up and going. All right, put that in linear. Okay, so now let's go back over here and let's maybe not YOLO this so hard this time. Let's do like sleep like that. Let's just let's go a little slower. Okay, that's plenty. Okay, so now we can go back over here. Great. So now we're booting them up, and you can see, for instance, like what the pool was. The pool defines what the configuration is, and that's really just there for you to know, like, did I get the right configuration? I think we could do better helping people use these identifiers. We use
Is
them a lot in
pool
debugging.
is pool sort of like analogous to like a version number of like this is my
Yeah, so
combination of app and environment variables and all that?
that's exactly right. Yeah, and specifically also how many instances. So the pool carries like, oh, this is auto scaling. Oh, this is a pool that has fixed instances, that kind of thing.
Why didn't you just go with like an incrementing number?
Like pool number, pool version 1, pool version 2. Yeah, you
Yeah.
know what? We've talked about it. I think that if it's the reason we didn't do it is because it's more work to implement. And I guess the question is that work something that users want? But I mean, okay, so there we go. By the way, so now we've got these extra instances up and running. And if we go back over here, we can run these again, and we will. Yep. So now we're seeing responses a little more quickly because now we've got a number of different actual sandboxes running them, and it didn't boot them back up. So we sort of we've coalesce the number of backends with the number of requests sort of automatically, and that's the feature that's really great. As for like incrementing numbers, I guess if people really want them, I'm happy to build them. We didn't build them because we felt like what people wanted to know was mostly, is this different than the last one? So they're just looking for, is it a different number than before? And the identifiers are enough to say like, this is a different identifier than before. So
yeah, I'm not actually sure it's important that they're sortable or not, but the feature is really cool. It's definitely something I used back in Heroku days all the time, of like looking at the deploy log and seeing like, okay, this version was this version was this version was this. And like mostly what you care about is like, okay, I want to go back to XYZ specific combination of everything. And so
right.
As long as I can do that, I guess I think I'm fine.
Yeah, we do we're out of time. Otherwise I would show you like there's an app history that will list like the pools and the configuration versions, so you can basically, oh, I want to go back to this configuration ID, and you can go back to them and stuff like that. All right, well, it took a little longer than I expected, but that's okay. Thanks a bunch for being here, Nate. Really appreciate your time. And thanks, everybody. See you on the internet.
Yeah, see you. Thanks.